All right. Hello, everyone. It is Dr. Siobhan here, host of the Made Marriage Show. I'm so excited to be with you this evening, and I'm even more excited to share with you my featured guest. I'm going to let her say all the amazing things about herself in just a minute because there's a lot to share. But I'm super excited to be with you. This is season 2, if you've been following for a while. This is season 2, episode 2. I'm going to just raise my hand and tell the truth. I was not on last week, so forgive me for skipping a week already in this season. I'm still recovering from the interview we had with our guest the other week. So if you haven't caught the interview with Stephanie Helms Pickett, catch it for sure, because at the end, she drops a bomb on all of us, so much so that I have to have her come back and talk about what she told us at the end of that show. But anyways, if this is your first time watching the Made Marriage Show, first of all, say hello to us in the comments so we know that you are there. We'd love to say hello back to you. It doesn't float on our screen until you write it. We'd love to know who's watching us live. And if you're watching the replay, we'd love to still hear from you. So be sure to say hello to us there. But this is the show where I get to interview amazing and incredible everyday wives about how they make their marriage work, specifically from the lens of even looking at themselves, at the things that maybe they had to pay attention to within themselves in order to make their marriage work. Because we all know that amazing marriages do not just fall out of the sky. They are not just a snap of a finger, but they are intentionally made by the choices we make, the way we communicate with each other, and a whole host of other things about being intentional. And so this show is just highlighting how people are doing that, right? And so it is always my hope that these guests would share something that would inspire you, that would encourage you, that would empower you in your own marriage. And if you're watching and you're not even married yet, this is a lot of notes. So take notes and pay close attention, because everything every guest has said is 1,000% true. And we would love for you to get all of these juicy details and tidbits before you enter that phase of life. So thank you for watching. Janine is watching. Sharnetta is here. Hello. My mother, Marion. Anisha. All right, we're getting it, ladies. So you guys share this broadcast for us, right? Share it, because you already know it's good. You've already dedicated your time on a Monday. I have no idea what TV show you may be missing, but whatever it is, this is better. So thank you for watching us live. Be sure to share it, because you never know who might need to hear exactly what we're going to be talking about. Yes. So let me stop talking a little bit and turn the mic over to my beautiful and fabulous wink, wife, Rhea Plummer. So Rhea, tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do, and how you make your marriage work.
Sure. Okay. So first, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited. So I'm Rhea Plummer. I am a wife to Travis, a mom to 2 amazing little girls, Taylor and Morgan. By day, I am a compliance manager at a brokerage firm. And by night, well, really 24/7, I am the executive director and creator of an awesome community of wives called Fab Wives, which is a community of wives committed to love and marriage. We just provide an abundance of support, inspiration, motivation, and encouragement to each other. I saw a Fab Wife, hey Q, join the broadcast tonight. So yes, that's me. The high level, the overview of me.
Awesome. Yeah, so you guys can find Rhea's group, Fab Wives Committed to Love and Marriage. I am a part of that group, and it's a wonderful community. There's so many wonderful communities out there for us wives, and theirs is a fabulous one to be a part of. I love saying the word fabulous.
Yes, me too.
Anyways, okay. So Rhea, tell us about your love story, right? We all like to get those like little butterflies and hear the story of how people met and came to date and came to be married. So tell us about you and your husband and your love story.
No, you know what? I love telling this story because, especially to single people, the particular people in specific, because when my husband and I first crossed paths, a mutual friend of ours tried to connect us, and I was probably a sophomore in college, and I was like, no, not interested, not my type. Well, fast forward to 2 years later, we connected on a senior cruise. So we definitely met in college, but we were not college sweethearts. A lot of people think that we were college sweethearts. We were not. We did not connect until probably like 2 months before graduation. So luckily that happened, or else who knows when our paths would have crossed again. I'm sure they would have, but who knows when that would have happened. But we connected on a senior cruise. It was a senior trip with a ton of our classmates to celebrate our final days in college before the real world hit us. And we've been inseparable since. So we dated for probably about 5 years before we actually took the walk down the aisle together.
That's awesome. You know, I have to say a common theme of all my guests is like their spouse, the person that they ultimately married, like he pursued them a little bit and they weren't really interested at first. And so it's amazing how, especially for those of you who are still waiting for your husband, how it's just never what you expect. It's never what you expect. And I think that same theme could actually be applied to marriage just the same. Like it's not quite what you expect.
Absolutely.
So why don't you share with us maybe something that has surprised you about being married?
I would say that I think that probably the biggest thing that surprises me, I think a lot of people talk about communication being the key to having a successful marriage. I think that people kind of left off the part about compromise. Like, I feel like most of our communications are about the compromises that we'll make in marriage. I would think that that's the most surprising thing. And then second, I think that just the adjustment was shocking to me. I don't think that people realize that, you know, preparation of marriage is to create a solid foundation. And there's still a transition. It doesn't matter if you spend years in premarital counseling. It doesn't matter what books you've read. It's totally different when you're actually in your marriage. And it's always going to be the transition. And for me, my transition was pretty surprising. It was definitely an adjustment. And there were definitely some obstacles that I've had to overcome with myself in general. So I would think that I feel like that's probably the most surprising component of marriage for me.
Yeah. So tell us about, I mean, I agree with you. Tell us about some of those obstacles you've had to overcome. I often say that, you know, marriage is like a mirror and your spouse is like a mirror to you of all the things about yourself that maybe you don't want to look at, you don't want to change, you don't want to admit to. All of a sudden, you're like so vulnerable and exposed to this person where maybe when you're dating, you know, you pretty everything up, right? Like it's just very cleaned up, very polite and kind and compassionate version of ourselves. And then when we get married, right, they see all the messiness. And so what would you say have been some of the areas that you've had to sort of personally develop yourself in order to make your marriage work?
Yeah, you know what? I think probably the most common one for us modern day wives, just that art of learning how to be submissive and not equating the word submission with weakness, and learning that, yes, you are your independent self and you've come into this marriage independent and you can definitely do all things, but really letting that person, your husband, take care of you. That was a huge obstacle for me that I had to overcome. Just Miss Independent, just, you know, someone who's been in total control of the direction of my life. That was definitely tough to have to go back and start like conferring with someone about the steps that I took and not realizing how much that my actions would impact his life, even down to picking a career path or picking what job I'm going to choose next. It was like a huge, like, whoa, wait a minute. I really have to talk to my husband before I accept a position. Yes, I do, because especially if we have children, it's going to impact him if there's a job that requires travel or requires late nights in the office. It is something that you have to come to. And it's not to say, okay, I need permission, but it is, okay, what's the plan? If this, like, let me help you kind of lay out what we need to figure out. If this is what you're going to do, if this is the path you're going to take, let's come together and figure out how can we make this work for our family. And though that was tough for me, like, you know, you want something or you have it in your mind that this is what you're going to do and you create your path for it. But when you're married, you definitely have to confer with someone and make sure that your paths are aligned and make sure that whatever you're doing is to grow your family above your own self-interest. So that was tough to maneuver at first. And it is still a challenge. It is still sometimes a challenge when you have something that you're so passionate about and you really want to just take on, but you realize, you know what, let me take a step back. I really need to discuss this with my husband and see if this works for our family. And even now, our kids are older. We discuss these things with them too. We bring them into the conversation too, because they need to also get used to knowing that it's not just about you. Look how mommy and daddy come and bring you into a decision and see if you're comfortable with the decisions that are going to make a huge impact on our family dynamic, so that they can learn how to compromise and how to see outside of themselves too.
Awesome. That's really, really awesome. So how would you say, you know, again, you talked about compromising and conferring with your husband. And you also started it off with like the modern day woman. And I know us modern day women, we like our independence, right? We like feeling like ourselves. So how would you say that in the midst of, you know, especially if you guys started dating in college and, you know, growing into even a more mature adult with children now, how would you say that you've been able to sort of maintain your own identity in this transition?
Well, I definitely say in later years, my Fab Wives definitely keep me sane and help me maintain my own self-identity. I would say I'm a social butterfly. So that's important to me. Pursuing career advancement and growing the things that matter to me professionally is another way that I maintain my self-identity. Earlier on in the marriage, I wanted a degree. I got a master's degree. So really just focusing on the things that I always say, like, what makes you feel fabulous? Like, do more of that. For me, I have a high need for learning. I always need to be learning something new. And that's something that I invest myself into and I invest my time into. And that's for me. So that's something that I do to grow myself. That's really important. And then, like I said earlier, just maintaining a social life for me is so important. And it's just so, I feel like there was one point in my marriage where I was trying to get it right. And I felt like I was mimicking what I felt like right looked like. And I became like a recluse for a short time period. And I was so unhappy. And this is what I love about my husband, because he's like, this is not you. Like, go out. You love being out with your friends. You love going out for brunch. When's the last time you've done that? When's the last time that you went and got a mani-pedi? Like, be who you are. That adds value to your marriage. The best thing that you can do is to pour into yourself, because that's always going to transfer to your family. And I think that sometimes we're afraid to do that because we're so busy and we're wearing so many different hats that you feel like, okay, well, yes, you might say, yes, I need to pour into myself, but I don't feel like we wives do that as much as we should. And we feel like we can't do that because it's going to take away from our family, but it's not. It's going to pour more into them because you're going to be the best version of yourself possible. And that's going to just rub off into your family dynamic.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I think, you know, what your desire to be social really speaks to is a need for connection. And I think as women, more so than men, often we're like built for connection. And that doesn't mean that, you know, any other wife watching this needs to start their own like wives group and have, you know, social events all the time. I think it's figuring out what connection means and looks like for you, right? That may just mean you have one or two really close friends that you can just call on the phone sometimes, or people that you see on a regular basis or at certain junctures in the year that you just dedicate the time and the space and schedule ahead of time so that you can have that connection. But I agree with you. I too am a very I'm a like extroverted introvert. Like I like my quiet time and my private time, but I thrive on being around other people and great energy. That's why I probably do so many events now. But I really, appreciate that point. And I think for those listening, it's sort of like, are you connected? Like if you're feeling a little down, if you're feeling a little isolated, what are the ways that you can connect with other people, whether that's virtually through lots of different avenues here on Facebook or in other, in-person opportunities as well. That connection to someone else makes you a more fulfilled person. Just like Ria said, you can then have good energy to give back to your family. I found that to be so true. It's not a sacrifice taking away. It's like an essential to give back to them.
Yeah, I always say, like, when I'm speaking with different wives and my friends who are wives who feel like they're losing themselves or they've lost themselves, what makes you feel fabulous? Like outside of your home and your kids and your husband, what makes you feel fabulous? It doesn't have to be, like you said, I'm a social butterfly. It doesn't have to be going out and socializing. Art. Do you love art? Take an art class once a month. Is it pottery that you're interested in? There's different ways to channel. I know that one of the wives in our community, she loves to read. It's so evident that a book lights her face up. She loves to read. That's her way to pour into herself. Like, what makes you feel fabulous? Do more of that and make sure that you do it consistently. Yeah. Because it will transfer into your family dynamic for sure.
It's so true. It's so true. Let me pick up on this point, which is kind of along the lines a little bit of what we're talking about, of sort of being complete within yourself. So what makes you feel fabulous, I think, is really a symbol for what makes you complete within yourself, what speaks to all the various needs that you have. And I'll say that again, in my group as well, as I talk with a lot of women, that we run into issues when we expect our spouses to complete us, when we expect our spouses to make us feel a certain way. And so what do you say to that? Like, how would you suggest, or maybe how have you done for yourself, of ways to just feel complete within yourself without relying on your husband to make you feel a certain way?
Yeah. And it's so funny because I was that wife at one point who felt like you complete me. I think that, in most cases, they say opposites attract. I feel like for me and Travis, we're like a puzzle. Like everything that I lack, he's great at. So his strengths are my weaknesses and vice versa. So it almost feels like you do complete me. But you're a complete person. And honestly, what I had to realize was that was actually too much pressure to even put on a human being, even my husband, because what if, life gets to him and he crumbles? Then what? I'm incomplete. Then what? I crumble too. That's not how it's supposed to be. Even though he's my husband and he's my rock, I'm his rock too. So I should be a complete person on my own. And just like I said earlier, just really pouring into myself and investing time into myself. And I will honestly say the best thing that I could have ever done for my marriage in general, and for me as a person, and you could see the moment that I feel like I became a better person, was when I really went on a quest to become extremely self-aware. So really knowing myself intimately, knowing what makes me tick, what situations am I more prone to thrive in, what situations am I more prone to fail in, and how do I manage myself through those situations. That's when I really felt like a whole person, when I knew who I was, what I can tolerate as an individual, what I can't tolerate as an individual, the things that irked me that I have no time for, the things that I can entertain all day. I think that was the moment when I felt like a complete individual, and felt like my husband even though he fits the pieces to my puzzle, he's a compliment to me, and we don't complete each other because I don't have that much power over him, and vice versa, and I shouldn't. So
yeah, I love that. It's almost, I mean, I just have to, maybe this is a shameless plug, but it's really related to exactly what you said, in that, you know, I have created a little getaway to do that for us, because, you know, you seem like a type of person that is very disciplined. You mentioned that you love learning, and so you could probably create and carve out space for you to do that work for yourself. Some of us need like a little bit of help, and so I would need some help. Yeah, and so, you know, for those of you who are watching, I just want to share an experience that I've created that actually does literally, I'm going to have to go back here and like transcribe what you said, Rhea, because it speaks so much to exactly what this event that I have called the Glam Getaway is all about. And so GLAM stands for God's Love Abides in Me. And it's really about recentering yourself, being complete within yourself, tuning into yourself, like pressing pause on all the chaos and the noise of life to like, who am I? Like, what do I like? What do I need for myself? And how can I just reconnect with myself? We get so busy doing everything, doing all of the things, that we lose sight of what makes us feel fabulous, what makes us whole and complete. And I believe that that really starts with reconnecting with God, right? Reconnecting with our Creator, who, you know, knows everything about us. And so that's what the Glam Getaway is about. I'll definitely add it to this page, make sure the link is there for those of you who might be interested in that experience. But I do think that, you know, being able to pause, however you choose to do it, and really become self-aware. It's one of those skills that, like, if you can figure it out, like, everything else in your life becomes so much easier, not just your marriage, but everything else. When you can step outside of yourself and see yourself in a different way and become a better person, like, you could do anything. So
it really does. You'll learn how to thrive at home, in the workplace. You know, it really does. I totally agree.
Yeah. Awesome. So what is, let me think. I don't want to be too redundant because you dropped so many awesome gems on us. I don't want to be too redundant. But what advice would you give someone who may be struggling in their marriage, right? What's one thing, like one healthy habit, one practice, one step or action you think they could take that could really set them on the path to maybe being in a better place in their marriage?
So, you know what? And I think the reason why I want to say this is just because it's been a recurring theme. I feel like there's a season, and I've just been hearing a lot of people just having a rough time in marriage right now. And I think prayer always goes without saying. But I definitely feel like there are people that are suffering. And one person in our group commented on people suffering in silence, and I totally agree. And there have been comments just about like a reluctance to go to counseling. Mm-hmm. And I cannot disagree with that more. Like, even if you're going through such a tough storm in your marriage that you're not at the point where you want to, and I get it, you're not at the point where you want to speak with your husband yet, and you're not ready to hear what your husband says. Because sometimes you can go through a storm so bad that you're like, I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to hear what you have to say. So I get it. The good, bad, and ugly. Yeah, that's the ugly. But if you're not ready to take that step, then go for yourself. You know, go by yourself to start off with. And the counselor can really work you through some things and some feelings that you have, and help you to express them in a productive way. Because I think that sometimes you're just so filled with anger and resentment that you kind of go into silence, because you know that everything that's going to come out your mouth may be ugly. Every action may be ugly. And you don't want to put that out into the world. And I totally agree. And I think that that's commendable. But at some point, you are going to have to come together and communicate your way through this and work through your storm. Whatever result you end up with, you do need to take the step to push through that season. And if you're not ready to speak to your husband, start with yourself first and then work your way through to be able to then, and both you guys go alone and then come together. I definitely recommend couples counseling, but I can understand just kind of stepping back and kind of listening to some of the recent stories. I can definitely understand why some of the storms, you're not ready to, confront them with your husband because you need to work through your feelings first and your resentment and anger. But definitely don't shy away from counseling. Don't be reluctant to counseling, and don't think that suffering in silence is going to do you any good, because it's not going to at all. It's just going to make things fester and make things worse, to be honest.
Yeah, and it really just creates more isolation. And I think, when marriages are under attack, it's like that's a really bad place to be, where you're isolated. You don't have an outlet of wise counsel to steer you in the right direction. And I had another guest on the first season who talked about how her and her husband spent many, many years in just like their marriage sort of falling apart at the seams. And what really helped for them was going to therapy separately. And I think a lot of people, you hear wives, I hear it in your group, I hear it in my group, Happily Married Women, that if he's not going to go to counseling, then I'm not going, right? Like, if we don't go together, like, there's no point in going. And, I'm like, no, because what's happening in the marriage is a result of you and who you're being, and it's a result of him and who he's being. If any part of that equation changes for the better, the marriage will get better. Whether that just means you have new tools and new strategies for how to manage yourself in relation to him, that you can maintain your peace, or that you learn a new way of communicating with him. Like, any help, right, when you're struggling at that level is good help, whether that's just you, whether that's just him, whether that's the both of you. And I really appreciate your point that, maybe it doesn't mean that you go together. Maybe it does mean you go together. You really have to, find your way through it. And I would also just, underscore and keep trying. Like, when I encounter couples and when I'm coaching with women, it's sort of like, well, we tried marriage therapy and it didn't work. Like, you may not find that right person for you on the first try, and that's okay. One of the things I always suggest and offer to people is have a free consultation. Like, a person who is there to help you, whether you're going through your insurance or you're coming to me or whoever, like, take that time to get to know the person and make sure it's the right fit for you, that they're equipped to help you, that they can relate to what you're experiencing to, and that you feel comfortable. A lot of people just go with whoever their insurance says and suffer. Yep. That's okay for like a general practitioner, but something as fragile and as sacred as your marriage, you want to make sure that it's in the right hands. So don't give up, right? If you find a person that maybe isn't helping you, don't give up. It's a sacred covenant that you want to care for and put in the best of hands. And really the first set of hands is God. And then, just like you said, with prayer, and then otherwise counsel for experts and people who are prepared to really help you. So,
good point. I love it.
All right. So we're about to get to the great reveal. So those are being still, thank you. We are going to get to the part where with how long she's been married and how long she's been making her marriage work. I mean, she looks like a baby, right? So you're probably going to say like 6 months, but right? So for those of you who are watching, put your comments in there. How long do you think Miss Ria has been married to Travis? And in the meantime, while you're doing that, because there's a little bit of a delay, I'm going to ask you, Ria, to share, like one parting quote, one comment, one final piece of advice that you really want to make sure that, if nothing else, that people watching walk away with.
Okay, and I want to see y'all comments too. I'm curious to hear what people think.
Yeah,
so a parting quote. I honestly say, like, one of my favorite quotes, because going back to what I said earlier about one of the toughest parts of marriage, my transition in marriage outside of just being cultivated as this Miss Independent woman was compromise and learning the art of compromise and just not being aware of how much compromise was required. My favorite quote is by Dr. Miles Monroe, and it's marriage is bigger than the two people in it. And I always keep that quote in mind. I mean, I write it down. Every time my husband and I are coming together to confront an issue or just to work through an everyday plan, whether it's our annual budget or even what decision we're going to make about our kids' after school activities. Mm-hmm. Anything that could potentially lead to conflict or anything that we may have a different opinion on, I always say marriage is bigger than the two people in it. And I remind myself of that because sometimes you come together and you say, okay, well, what's the best thing for you? And what's the best thing for me? And then you try to meet in the middle. And that's totally backwards. And that's something that's going to create resentment because that feels like a lose, like someone's going to lose either entirely or a little bit. Like you have to give up something to get to that middle ground. But if you think about what can we do for the marriage, like what's best for the marriage, not us as individuals. Even if when you think about yourself on the back end and you're like, oh, that's not the outcome that I wanted personally, you're still going to feel good about the decision because you know that it's bigger than you and it's bigger than him. It's about your marriage. What's best for the marriage? Will this work for the marriage? Not for the two people in it. So I always carry that quote with me. I always keep that close to me and I always recite it because it's not easy to compromise. I'm an only child. So especially for me, my husband is a baby, the baby of his family. So compromise doesn't come natural to him either. We're both used to getting what we want. So a lot of times earlier on in marriage, we would both walk away and someone would be a little upset or we'll try to come back and say, wait a minute, let's talk about this again. But when we approach it as, okay, let's talk about what's best for the marriage and what's best for our family and come up with the best decision for that, nobody leaves away hurt because we know that we did it for what's best in something that's bigger than us and it has a greater purpose than any one of us can have. So that's my parting quote.
I love it. That is awesome. That is an awesome quote. Okay. So we have
12 years.
12 years. What's up with the rest of the people? I know y'all are there. You didn't vote yet. You didn't tell us what your votes are. Okay, well, 12 years is the going answer. Watch all you guys don't cheat. Don't wait for her to say it.
I know.
And then you put the comments. Okay?
And then you'll say, oh, I was going to say
that. Okay. Rhea, tell us how long you have been. Okay, 10 years. Okay, we got another. Thank you. Rhea, go ahead and tell us how long you've been.
All right, let me do a drum roll. All right.
Okay. She says it's 9. The answers are still coming.
Quanisha is my sister. Yes, 8 years, Karen. That's right. 8 years.
You got it.
2009. So 8 years of love and marriage. Yes.
Awesome. Karen. That is awesome. Well, Rhea, I am so glad that we could get this interview in.
No, this is so much fun.
All the wisdom that you shared with people.
Thank you.
Good. I hope you guys give her a round of applause. We want those emojis coming up on the screen. Thank you. So anything else? Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Definitely. Can I tell everybody where they can connect with me at?
Absolutely.
Okay, so guys, well, thank you first for tuning in. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Siobhan. This was so much fun. I love sharing my my marital journey with others. Thanks, Karen, for guessing right. So you can connect with me and the Fab Wives on Instagram and Facebook. 18 years. Oh, 18 years. Can we give her a round of applause?
Yes. 18 years. Congratulations. That is awesome. Awesome.
I know, that is awesome. So you can connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at FabWives. And you can also connect with our community of wives in the private Facebook group, Fab Wives Committed to Love and Marriage. We try to have transparent, unfiltered dialogue and really try to lean on each other for support, wisdom, advice, encouragement, motivation, because it's not easy going through this marital journey, but with the help of others who are transparent. That is awesome, Preston.
Yeah.
That is amazing. It just makes it that much smoother. So like we say in our community, it's not all glitz and glam. We just make it look fabulous.
I love that tagline. It's awesome. It's so true. It's not all glitz and glam.
It's not.
Well, thank you, Ria. You guys definitely check her out in the group. It's a very valuable group, Fab Wives here on Facebook. So thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in. I will be back next week. I won't skip a week this time. I will be back for an all-new episode of the Made Marriage Show right here on Facebook Live, 9 p.m. Eastern on this Relatable page. So thank you again, Ria. Laughter helps. Yes.
Yeah.
Laughter definitely helps.
Absolutely.
Very good. All right, everyone. Have an incredible evening, and I'll be back with you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.